Ronda Rousey is back in the news for the first time in a long time, so we'll see what's going on there. We'll also take a look at Randy Orton's true feelings on the storyline with The Fiend and much more. Let's start things off with Ronda Rousey. Things have been extremely quiet between Ronda Rousey and WWE for nearly 3 years now. Ronda first arrived on the scene in 2018's Royal Rumble event. It was a massive moment, some even labeling it as WWE's biggest signing of all time. It received mainstream coverage from massive outlets like ESPN and others. Ronda Rousey originally signed a 3-year deal with WWE and was signed throughout spring of 2021. But as everyone knows, she stepped away in 2019 after WrestleMania 35, with 2 years still left on her deal. So the big question everyone had was obviously about her contract status. Did the contract expire while she was away? Or did WWE freeze the contract until she can still return to finish out the remaining time on her deal? That's what everyone has been asking. But all of a sudden, during Royal Rumble week, all these reports started popping up about Ronda Rousey's return. Sean Ross broke the story that WWE was allegedly pushing hard for a return from Ronda Rousey, and ever since this story came out, all of these Ronda Rousey reports have been flooding the headlines. There was another report that claimed that Ronda's hairdresser was booked in WWE throughout WrestleMania season. So it's been this non-stop pile of Ronda Rousey related news. The fans obviously don't know in this current time if she will return, and it would appear that WWE doesn't even know themselves. The reports keep claiming that WWE is pushing hard for a return from Ronda Rousey for WrestleMania. Other reports even claim that there's been meetings between Ronda and WWE. But there's just so many conflicting reports out there right now. But hypothetically speaking, if we do see a Ronda Rousey Royal Rumble return, or even a return later on during the WrestleMania season, you already know what massive match WWE will have in store for her. Ronda Rousey would most definitely come for a woman that dethroned her during her last appearance, and that woman is Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch made a few jokes over the summer about how she knows Ronda will return because Ronda was probably so inspired by everything Becky Lynch accomplished coming back from a pregnancy like that. Don't forget that Ronda Rousey just gave birth a few months back in the fall, so that was Becky's main point and joke here. She wanted Ronda to return and try to do what she did coming off a pregnancy. And if these rumors are true, careful what you wish for, because Becky Lynch may experience a returning Ronda Rousey firsthand. If WWE is able to pull this off, if Ronda does return at Royal Rumble, she'll most likely win the entire thing and challenge Becky Lynch, giving us the one-on-one match between those two that we've been waiting on for 4 years now. And the fact that WrestleMania is a 2-night event once again, Becky vs. Ronda would no doubt easily main event one of those WrestleMania nights. Becky vs. Ronda on one night and something like Brock vs. Roman on the other night would be quite stacked events for WrestleMania. So if Ronda Rousey is ever going to return to WWE, now just seems like the ideal, perfect time. It's one of those rare situations where the story basically just writes itself. She returns, wins it all, and finds herself face to face with Becky Lynch. A match that was supposed to take place 4 years ago, but never did, thanks to the entire broken nose situation for Becky Lynch. You would have cocky heel champion Becky Lynch going up against returning babyface Ronda Rousey. Sure, Ronda was a heel last time we saw her, but that doesn't really matter anymore. If she's coming back from a massive 3-year hiatus, the fans will definitely be excited and definitely lose their minds for her, so she can easily take the babyface role. Becky's title situation is sort of like how Roman's was. Here's this heel champion that beats everyone and cheats from time to time. But who can knock them off the top? Well, there's no bigger threat to Becky Lynch than Ronda Rousey herself. So Ronda Rousey would be the perfect, biggest, and scariest challenger for Becky Lynch so far in this current title reign. You got the revenge story going there, and just so much history between these two that it will instantly generate a lot of buzz for WrestleMania. So we'll see if Ronda Rousey does end up making a return sometime during this WrestleMania season or not. The Fiend versus Randy Orton started off as a promising story back in late 2020, given all the history between Orton and Wyatt. But after the events of TLC that year, the story quickly plummeted into being one of the worst stories we've seen in a while. The Fiend gets lit on fire, there's all these rumors of a new Fiend, and how we have to wait things out and let it play out. So that's what everyone did. But there were so many logic issues that just turned so many fans off with this story. First one being that WWE spent the better part of 2 years telling us that The Fiend and Bray Wyatt were two separate people. If that's true, how come Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt disappeared after the Inferno match? It's just small little things like that. The feud then became Alexa Bliss versus Randy Orton. They had cliffhanger segments to main event Raw, segments like Orton dropping a match on Alexa. But come back next week and it turns out that he actually didn't drop the match. Alexa then throws a fireball at him. His face is burnt for 1 week and then fully healed in the next week after that. And then it got to the point where they ran out of ideas and they just started repeating Randy Orton spitting up black liquid for so many weeks in a row. It got repetitive and dull. Plus, the black liquid never had a deeper meaning, which later led to the disaster conclusion of that dreadful story at WrestleMania 37. But for the first time ever, Randy Orton is giving his thoughts on the story. He had this to say while speaking with The Ringer Wrestler Show, quote, "I was doing Fiend stuff a year ago. That was hard. Some of that was rough. They put me in the burn mask 1 week and the next week I'm out of it and my skin healed. It's tough. Even though I'm lighting a guy on fire and he's the babyface, I had a very hard time trying to make that real. But I feel like I did a good enough job to where even though it was a little cringeworthy for some people, because I really tried to believe I was going through this, I think it helped people buy into it a little bit more while we were suspending that reality and trying to make them believe like they would if they were watching the most recent Halloween movie." End quote. And that's true. As the viewers, we all suspended reality just to try to find some sort of story here to follow this feud. But there was nothing there. Looking back the full story now, it feels like they were just making these big decisions without properly knowing where they were going with it, and that definitely showed. So, it's unfortunate that the story turned out the way it did. Not only was it a bit on the hard side to watch of things, this story basically eliminated the Fiend's mystique and character once and for all. Bray Wyatt was never seen from again in WWE after that horrific storyline, and Randy Orton formed Team RK-Bro literally the night after that WrestleMania match with Bray, and that's how things unfortunately unfolded. But what are your thoughts on today's stories? Leave your comments below, don't forget to subscribe, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Thanks for watching, guys.